All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone, wherever you are across the globe. My name is Lisa Gunshore. I'm your host of the One Heart, One Earth Global Healing Summit for June 2020. If you have not yet registered, you can do so at oneheartoneearth.net. So make sure you do that. Don't forget to click subscribe. And you can also use the chat box to your right. If you have questions or comments, I'll be getting those to our presenter at some point somehow. So we had a podcast earlier today with Christine, and she is back with us. I want to welcome back Christine Shahin back. Welcome back.
Thank you. What a fun day it's been.
It really has just been an awesome day, and I'm so happy to have you back, and I'm going to hand it off to you, and everybody enjoy her presentation, and I'll see you guys back at 7 p.m. for the last presentation of today. So thank you, Christine.
Yeah, thank you. Blessings and beauty. All right, so I'm sort of blind here only because I don't see my, let's see, how do I do this? Sorry, here we go, maybe. All right. So today or this evening on my time, just sharing with you all this, what's really in your cosmetics, or why should I care about my personal care? And in that, I'm still playing around with this little, I don't know. And I guess as long as you can see, that's fine. So anyway, just a little bit about myself. I am a licensed cosmetologist, originally a folk herbalist. And that means that my experience has not been official. I taught myself how to take care of myself and my children with herbs through reading and experimentation, and learned a lot. So I feel that I'm more of a folk herbalist. I know what's in my kitchen, I know what I'm growing, and I know how to use that for personal use. I grew more into working with the herbs for hair coloring. So I'm a natural pregnant hair colorist. And I've been an environmental activist for 3 decades. And I was an official delegate to the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, South Africa in 2002. I have 6 grown children, and they were all born naturally at home and raised on herbal and alternative therapies. I authored a book in 2016 called Natural Hair Coloring: How to Use Henna and Other Pure Herbal Pigments for Chemical-Free Beauty. So that's just a little bit about me. And again, Nicole Sawyer is so talented, and I'm just so blessed to have her talents, whether it's coloring hair with the herbs to help with the clients that I no longer take in my salon, or her beautiful graphic designs. Thank you, Nicole. And then I wanted to get into, so this stuff is based on my experience being as an environmental activist on many different environmental issues on boards of directors, different boards of directors. So we have product categories. We have the all synthetic chemical, and they tend to be toxic chemicals. So if we have time, I'd like to run through my Green Shopper's Guide with you as well, which is one of my gifts to you for being part of the summit. I can send you a copy of that Green Shopper's Guide that I created. And I'm also doing a 20% off my book if you email me through my website. So we have the first category is an all synthetic product. And we say chemical, we say toxic, and then we ask the question, toxic to whom? We have to choose our sensitivities, right? So while natural is more healing to the earth, some people cannot do natural substances or products, and some people cannot do chemical. So we're here really learning about ourselves. And when we learn about ourselves, we know what works for us, and then our best strategies for ourselves, for our values, and our planet. Then we have a more hybrid product with, it's a chemical with natural, it's what we would call a least or less toxic product. We like hybrid cars right now. We might not necessarily care so much for a hybrid personal care product. They certainly have a markup that more retail stores, natural retail stores would like, because they're a little bit cheaper because they're using some synthetic ingredients in along with the natural ones. And then we have the other category, which is all natural, and we would consider that non-toxic. Again, it's non-toxic to the earth. It's non-toxic to your personal ecology, meaning your body, your personal body ecology, only if you are not sensitive. Anybody can be sensitive to anything, whether it's herbs or minerals or chemicals. So that's one of the things. And I just want to be clear that everything is a chemical. We have used these words like chemical and natural to show some distinction in product. It's a popular vernacular. So that's what we're doing. So here we have some agencies that you might want to be aware of that take care of the products that go out into the public. So we have the Cosmetic Ingredient Review, and it's actually a self-regulating panel. So it is funded by the Cosmetic Industry Trade Association. So they definitely have a little bit of a self-interest in that. Then we have the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Certainly, we know that FDA has been understaffed, and it is a federal regulatory agency. And as far as being able to handle the workload because they are understaffed, that becomes a real issue. And then we have consumer rights protection groups. We have our NGOs in the world that these issues mean so much to them that they create a space for knowledge and information so that the public is protected. So in New York State, we have Clean and Healthy New York, and they are longtime friends and colleagues from my past life. And then nationally, we have the U.S. Public Interest Research Group. Now, each state typically does have a public interest research group. I worked for NYPIRG, New York Public Interest Research Group, for many years. And so each state would have one, and they are a great resource. So if you've never heard of them before, you might want to check out US PIRG and find out if you have one in your state. And then we have Skin Deep, which is I want to say it's a database. Skin Deep is put out through the Environmental Working Group. And what Skin Deep does is they have a mission to have every single ingredient be tested before it's put out on the market. So that's a great goal to have. On that note, where you could go to their website, Skin Deep, and plug in any product, and it will give you hazard ratings. The only issue that I find with the system is because their goal is to have everything tested, which I agree with. If there's no data on an herb as well as a chemical, it can give a reading that might lift the herb into a more hazard category. And that's one of my things with that system. And then also my concern is too that if a product has a series of hazard ones, which are least toxic, right? So those are least toxic chemicals, or what we would call green chemistry in some regards. then is that product really a one hazard whole if it had like 5 one hazards? I don't know if you can understand, but if you go to their website, I think you'll be able to see what I'm saying. So if a product has 5 number 1 hazards, which is the lowest on the scale, would that really mean that they are a 1 hazard? Or in my book, it might increase that to at least a 2 or a 3 hazard. Anyway, you want to check out Women's Voices for the Earth as well. They are really doing some wonderful research and have great projects like Detox the Box. And I think that with a little imagination, you can understand which box that we want to detox. It's kind of a V box. All right. Thanks for your patience. Okay. So here we go. 1 out of every 10 ingredients approved for use by the Cosmetic Ingredient Review Panel shows some evidence of reproductive toxicity in laboratory studies, according to the Environmental Working Group's assessment. So that's 1 out of every 10 ingredients. As just 28 of the 7,500 products that the Environmental Working Group analyzed have been fully assessed for safety by the Cosmetic Ingredient Review. 28 out of 7,500 products. All other products, 99.6% of those examined contain 1 or more ingredients never assessed for potential health impacts. Never assessed for a potential health impact. The government does not systematically review the safety of personal care products and has banned or restricted just 9 out of the more than 10,000 ingredients used in personal care products. 55% of all products assessed contain penetration enhancers. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit here about what a penetration enhancer is. It is an ingredient that increases a product's penetration through the skin into the bloodstream. And why would we want that to happen? There is the idea that for like sunscreens and things like that, that you want them to be absorbed quickly because they can be somewhat pasty. And so you have this absorbent enhancer happening. It's making your body receive what you're putting on topically much quicker and much faster. Now, today with Lisa on the podcast, we did discuss how 60% of what we put on our skin topically is absorbed directly into the bloodstream within 20 seconds. So again, in my world, if it's not consumable, why would you use something? Because it is going to be consumed. An astonishing 1/3 of all products contain 1 or more ingredients classified as possible harm as a carcinogen. And 71 hair dye products contain ingredients derived from carcinogenic coal tars. These products have been granted a specific exemption from federal rules that deem these products to be adulterated when they contain ingredients that can harm human health. Coal tar hair dyes are one of the few products for which the FDA has actually issued consumer advice on the benefits of reducing their use. So actually, the darker the hair color in chemicals, the more toxic it can be. The PPD that is in chemical hair colorants has been linked to the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And Jackie O had really dark hair, and that was what she was ill with, was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So 70% of all ingredients products contain ingredients that may be contaminated with impurities that are linked to cancer. 54 products violate the recommendations for safe use by the industry's self-regulating board. In 67 years of monitoring the cosmetic safety, and FDA has banned or restricted just 9 personal care products. By contrast, 450 ingredients are banned for the use in cosmetics in the European Union, although the vast majority of these have never been used by their industry. The regulatory vacuum in the US gives cosmetic companies tremendous leeway in selecting ingredients, while it transfers potentially significant and largely unnecessary health risks to the users of the products. And so this comic I find so it's so explicit. As you can see, 2 women are shopping, and one says, "Oh, this lotion contains glycosylsterate, ethylene brassylate, ethyl paraben, phenyl ethanol, and tetrasodium EDTA." And the other woman, as she's squirting herself, says, "Oh, what's it called?" And the name is Nature's Formula. Again, in today's podcast with Lisa, we both discussed how incredible it is that you could go into a market, you know, with the name of Nature or Whole Foods, and you make an assumption that just by going into that store that you're getting purer products, cleaner products. We would use the term cleaner. And the reality is that they're not also reading labels, they're just running a business. For a little while, I do believe Whole Foods did create a green shopper's guide after I created mine. I created mine when I was working in Syracuse for a premier natural retail and health facility. Hi, Wendy. Thanks for that. Anyway, so these are the exposure routes. We have our skin, as we said, it's our body's largest organ. And, you know, it's absorbable. It goes right through from the skin into our blood. The skin is lubricated by its own oil glands, which keep both the outside layer of the epidermis and hair from drying to brittleness, and human skin has remarkable self-healing properties. So sometimes some of the best things that you can do are so simple for your skin. A little cider vinegar and water, half and half, spritzed on, can do such amazing things, or a little salt water on your skin. And this is what your skin looks like. I'm sure that you've seen some of these kinds of diagrams before. Osmosis. So they influence distribution of nutrients and the release of waste products. So remember, whatever you put into your body is going to come out of your body. Whatever you put into the product is going to come out of the product. So we want to make sure that what we're using is something that's good not only for ourselves, but as we create waste, it's good in our septic systems, in our waterways, because once our waterways are contaminated, it's a lot harder to get the contaminants out. All of the hormones, whether they're delivered by a patch or by a pill or injection, all of your medications, they come out of your body and into the water system, and they create new chemical combinations that were never intended when they were created. They were created for this purpose, they were created for that purpose. Now they're mixing together in the water and they're creating a new combination. Breathing is a huge way of exposure, and with the coronavirus, we all are becoming so much more aware of the reality that our sacred texts from all over the planet have said that we are one, right? Because you can wear a mask, and I'm not telling you not to, but what I'm going to say is that breathing is the most intimate act that we can do. It doesn't matter if you're 6 feet apart. It doesn't matter if you're 10 feet apart. Air it's a current, and we are breathing in and out each other's air all the time, way before virus brought its head up. So the reality of being fearful, I mean, wear your mask, do the things you got to do, but don't get to the point where, you know, spittle 12 feet away is it's a riot act. You should know this. You should know that we share a very intimate process every single day. And in that act of breathing, when we are sharing that, we are sharing our atoms, little piece of me for you, little piece of you for me. And it also points to the ridiculousness of racism, because we're all breathing the same air. We're all exchanging molecules. It's a tool to divide. Ingestion. So mouth, whether it's accidental or intentional, like food, is a route of exposure. And so here are our exposure issues. We have pesticides on foods and in neighborhoods, right? You can walk through your neighborhood and see the little signs on the lawn that has just been sprayed. And just so you know, a long time ago when I was first an activist, they didn't have to put those little flags on lawns. We worked really hard to make sure that today those companies have to put flags on the lawns, letting you know that that lawn is recently sprayed, so that you can at least take precaution around that. Household cleaners, traffic, right? All of that. Industry, we know industry is an exposure route, and your personal care products. And as we said, our medicine. So the exposure levels, the safety standards are set for a 6 foot tall, 200-pound white male. That's how they set safety standards. They're not taking into consideration a 5 foot, 120-pound female. They're taking all of these safety standards on a 6 foot tall, 200-pound white male. And of course, children are more vulnerable. Some of these exposure chemicals that we're exposed to are persistent and bioaccumulative, which means, as you know, that they last and they become more the more you're exposed to them. And for women, the chemicals will bioaccumulate and stored in the fat layer. So we have an extra layer of fat than men, and of course our fatty organs like our breasts. So those are things that are a big concern. In a survey of 2,300 people, the Environmental Working Group found that the average adult uses 9 such products every day, containing 126 unique chemical ingredients. 1/4 of all women use at least 15 products a day. I tend to be, again, not a product person. I like to use teas and, like I said, cider vinegar, some salts, and we can get into some of that. Chemicals linked to birth defects and infertility do not belong in fragrances, deodorants, and other products that we use every day, and yet they are. Women's Voices for the Earth. We demand that cosmetic manufacturers act responsibly and immediately remove these unnecessary risky chemicals from their products. I mean, these are been tested to prove that they, or have proven it through testing, that they are risky for pregnant women, for babies. And then they still use them. And so again, one of our exposure routes is inhalation, right? So this is a report called Get a Whiff of This. So if you want, you can look it up, get a whiff of this. And some people would know this when they're in an environment and they have a scent that just gives them a headache. So some people are chemically sensitive, and now they have fragrance-free zones. They didn't used to have that stuff. a lot of people worked really long and tired to make sure that there were some of those spaces. Now, remember that even though we worked long and hard to get those spaces, we're seeing a lot of rollbacks. So you want to make sure that you follow some of this so that you can also lend your voice where it's appropriate. So some of these scents, just the scents, affect are listed as effects to multiple sclerosis, breast cancer, other cancers, sudden infant death syndrome, fetal abnormalities, and any neurological and central nervous system disorder or disease, just from smelling. And we see that there is sperm damage linked to phthalates used in fragrances. So if you're somebody that's been watching some of this and you're buying products that say phthalate free or SLS free and all of that, that's great. So you kind of get some of this stuff already. Remember that they are switching to some other versions. So you want to stay abreast. Don't assume that just because the store has the name natural or nature or whole food or this, that they're reading the ingredient labels for you and then bringing them in, because the natural, what we would call natural products industry, they have people in there that are really, really good companies making really, really good products, but then they have, and that's why I want to get into this green steps guide for you a little bit. So again, you know, we see the damage in sperm from that. Chemicals in perfume may cause cancer. These are all, this is the Times of India in 2002. If anybody wants a printout of this, just let me know. Again, we are discussed absorption enhancers and why they do that, because you don't, the public doesn't really want something on the surface of their skin and feel sticky or tacky. So they're going to add an absorption enhancer. And that means that it gets absorbed really quickly, and you want to make sure that what it's absorbing is good for you. Also, some really natural products would use grain alcohol, and they would use essential oils. So oils do absorb other oils, and they would know from the blend of what they're trying to accomplish with their product, which oils would be best for absorbing more quickly. And then you don't have to worry as well about the other ingredients, because these are natural ingredients. So this was, I think, 2014, this rollback. So we've been seeing so many rollbacks within the last, I don't even know, I'm not going to say 4 years because it's been longer than that. But anyway, we have seen the rollbacks on the National Organic Program, and what that means as to when they put the organic label on clothes and food and things like that. And then, so that was April 14th, 2004. And then on April 28th, there was an announcement that pesticides, animal dungs, which, you know, if they're treating the animals with medications or other kinds of substances, growth hormones, antibiotics, stuff like that, could be allowed on tainted fish meal. It could be allowed on organic farms. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the organic farm is going to say, hey, can you send me some of that animal dung that has the antibiotics in it? No, what ends up happening is that the person or the company that's selling them can sell that without labeling it to organic farms. So then that ends up being a burden for the organic farmer to have to, of course, read labels too and do the research on product, which is what we all have to do. And that's why I was saying earlier around just because a store has a name and has a feel, you still want to be your own advocate. And again, this was years, 2014, USDA organic label on supplements, finally in pet food. It was like, okay, you can have the label. And then just a week later, they lost the use of the USDA organic standard that means to consumers and retailers. So in other words, because of the ability to dump those dung and other things into organic fertilizer, it pretty much null and voided the USDA organic label. I mean, we're all still wanting to find that label, right? And in the hopes that it makes a big difference. But the reality is we don't really know. But we've been taught to, and it's important, of course, to put your money where you want to grow your economy. And that's absolutely true. And yet it just is becoming a little bit more challenging for you to do that, because now you've got to do the research, because they've given you a label that was supposed to tell you that this was a good product and you could buy it and feel safe. And then they turned around and changed what it meant. And so now you still have to research your USDA organic label. So one of the things that we can do is to control our exposures ourselves, right? So we can control that by choosing our personal care products. We can also get involved in our communities. Like in New York, we have Clean and Healthy New York. Find something in your community. Make sure that you have a good relationship, even if it's just to be on their email list and get their updates on what's happening in your area. And when you're able to give them a little love, that's great. But get on the lists and start getting some of those newsletters and start seeing what is happening around you so that you can make better informed decisions. And so sustainable development and fair trade is the meeting of the demands of today without jeopardizing the needs of tomorrow. It's a new way of thinking that sees economic and environmental health as interlinked and mutually supportive goals. I remember many years ago, there was a slogan that said, our natural resources are our money in the bank. They just don't have overdraft protection. So these are some of the issues that many people have been putting their life force into to make sure that by the time we got to 2020, we would have some progress. Of course, again, progress isn't always a linear line, and sometimes we have to spiral to see those things yet again so that we can deal with them yet again and maybe make a bigger difference this time. We were official delegates to the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Developed countries continue to make money from resources of countries that have not addressed the issues of sustainability. The US alone uses 80% of the world's natural resources, leaving 20% for the rest of the world to divide up amongst itself. And the C word we like to use in when I was director for Kids Against Pollution is purchasing becomes an act of compassion. Like we said, with every dollar we spend, we create our money in an equitable world that we want. And remember, it's harder today, so you have to do more homework. And here are some websites that I felt that you would benefit from having. The Environmental Working Group, Food and Drug Administration, Healthcare Without Harm. That's a really good one too. The campaign for safe cosmetics, Women's Voices for the Earth, Detox the Box. You want that one, girls. Detox the box, especially if you're menstruating. Yeah, you want to check that one out. Skin Deep, and then of course, ChristineShahin.com. Let's see. Yep, you'll find me Facebook, all those places. And let me see if I can quickly bring up the green shoppers. You don't know what I'm doing, so thank you for being patient with me. All right. I wonder, here I go. I'm going to X this out and see if, oh, ta-da. Okay. So again, we have 5 steps. This is a free gift if you would like a copy. And we start with this glossary of terms, right? Chemical. Everything really is chemical. We have our bodies are made up of chemicals, our emotions, our relationships, it's all chemical. We have decided to use that term chemical for a popular vernacular to describe man-made toxic substances. Then we have green chemistry, which is the design of chemical products and processes that reduce and or eliminate the generation of hazardous substances. Everything that we create has waste, it has to go someplace. I do believe in green chemistry because I believe that we can rape and plunder the planet as easily doing everything all natural as we can doing everything all unnatural. So there is a place for green chemistry. I would like to point out here that mineral makeup is one of those categorizations that I would say green chemistry would be really important, because on the surface, you may be thinking, well, this one says it's naturally extracted, and this one says that it's made in a lab. I'm obviously going to take the one that's naturally extracted, except for the fact that when minerals are naturally extracted, that means that they're boring holes and using dynamite and extracting the minerals that way. So they're digging. So you want to make sure that these digs they're not near hazardous waste sites, that there's a lot. So you jump down this rabbit hole and there's a lot. So in my world, if you're going to be using a mineral makeup, you do want it to be made in a lab. They can create the minerals in a lab setting that are non-toxic, and you're not going to get the exploitation of the earth, the poisoning of the water and the air that you would get from naturally extracted raw minerals. Then we have the term natural and organic, right? Natural's from nature. Organic is production without the use of chemical fertilizers, blah, 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 herbicides, pesticides. And then sustainability is, again, we just described a method of using resources so as to not deplete or permanently damage resources for future generations. Fair traded means that we're doing a living wage wherever we go so that we're not taking advantage. And then at the very end here, I want to discuss what I mean by co-opting the term sustainability. So what has happened through this sustainability movement is that those that have an interest to not be adversely impacted in the sustainability movement or by the sustainability movement have created some language that can be of concern. And that language in these documents revolves around a company's ability to function as a partner in community in a sustainable way. I really should get the exact language, but there is a huge issue around using sustainability in a way that is self-serving rather than more generally serving. And then I wanted to get into a little bit with you about the inky label. Many years ago, I would say probably even 20 years ago, which um, the labels, if you were a cutting edge natural products manufacturer, you could put just the names of the herbs on your label. You could say lavender, geranium, vitamin C, that kind of thing. Within the last, I believe, 10 years, what has happened is that many of the companies are now using an INCI label, and INCI stands for International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients. It is a system that is used worldwide so that it kind of doesn't depend on somebody knowing English, right? So they might maybe look at lavender on a label, and in French it's lavender or whatever. However, I know my friend Audrey's going to be laughing at me because she's French. But anyway, you get what I mean. So this INCI label is more universal. It uses Latin names, and it has some English words or words in the local language. So in some ways that's a helpful thing, and in other ways it sort of took the empowerment out of our hands, because now we're seeing names in Latin that we might not be familiar with, and oftentimes they will do the Latin term, and in parentheses they give you the English common name or French common name. So in my little step guide, I have step one as a transition, right? So you're having concerns, you're just learning, and you're taking a step. And these products, they're more economical. They have one or two natural or organic ingredients, but they're within the bulk of a chemical base. And step two is that you have crossed over into a less toxic or least toxic personal care product, because step two is the flip of step one. These products are basically, they have like the one or two chemical ingredients at the end of the label, because remember, labels are usually listed with the greatest amount first. And sometimes you'll see water is the greatest amount, something to consider. And so anyway, these one or two chemicals at the end of the label, but they're in a bulk of natural ingredient base. And then I say step three is progression. And you have progressed into an all natural product at step three. At step three, you have progressed into an all natural product. It's 100% natural. It could be a cottage industry. And you know, it's like a small big business, something that could be even imported, but it's handcrafted. It could be local handcrafted. It could be dried ingredients so that you don't have a need for preservatives, or if it has a liquid, then the preservatives are natural. They have natural grain alcohols, again, essential oils, things like that. But the company may not be able to afford mainstream certifications. So they might have a different kind of certification. And what we're seeing with how they've compromised the USDA organic label, then we may actually want to look into some other labelings or, you know, certifications. And the packaging can be refilled or recycled. So here we have a co-op where I can take my jar and get my honey, right? And I just fill that back up, and then I'm not having to buy a whole thing. I'm just buying the honey, and that bottle gets reused over and over and over again. Step four, I say we're shifting. right? We are shifting, we've progressed, we're into an all natural product. Now, step 4, we have shifted into all natural products with they're more of a large company, and they're able to afford the mainstream certifications. They give a living wage for their employees, and their packaging is usually recycled and recyclable. And then step 5, I say we've evolved. We have evolved into a conscious consumer. It's 100% natural product. It's a large company able to afford mainstream certifications, living wages for employees. It's now fairly traded. The packaging is recycled content. It's made from renewables and alternative materials. And this guide is based on, again, my extensive experience on numerous diverse environmental working groups with and for grassroots community-based and major environmental organizations. Again, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, it's Christine Shahin. On Instagram, I am the Mutter Goddess. So I don't know if we have any questions, but again, you can find me on social media, my website, Christine Shahin. You can send me an email through my website and say that you participated in whatever workshops that you did with me. And if you would like a copy of the Green Shopper's Guide so that you can kind of look at that and really mill it over, or if you want to purchase a book at 20% off, just let me know, and I'll get right back to you. And thank you so much, Lisa. And I hope it wasn't too overwhelming, because it can be kind of an in-depth subject.
Yeah, thank you. No, it was so good. And it is, I think the overwhelming part is just realizing that we don't really know everything that's in our products. And so this was really, really good. I don't see any questions on the live.
That's fine.
We do have
I got some later through the website, so that's fine.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you to everybody who's
Thank
watching
you.
live. And we have spiritual scripting coming up next at 7.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much, Christine. So
Yeah.
much to you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.